What I want to talk about is why you and so many others around the world are protesting this Megalodon Project.
It's ungodly. No man needs what they're trying to accomplish. Good God-fearing citizens recognize that this is the devil's work. We cannot just sit down and accept this kind of blasphemy.
So you believe it's science gone too far?
Absolutely. These crazy scientists have always been at odds with us, God-fearing citizens. First teaching the theory of evolution in schools, and now this. What's next? Flying a spaceship straight into heaven?
But can you not think of the kind of technology that could come from this experiment? It could change the world forever. I can't help but be curious as to the results of all this. It's both exciting and terrifying.
Only 12 days into initial vetting and prototyping for potential test subjects and the overall effectiveness of the serum, and we've already had a leak. Someone on the research team has clearly been paid off by the press. We need to weed out potential rats in order to keep the good faith of our investors. Stevens is going to be angry about this, but I am determined to keep the experiment on track regardless of this mishap. Other than these clerical errors, testing the serum on mice has proved that cognitive function is improved to a ludicrous degree. I think this most recent prototype is on the right track. All that is left is to find a suitable test subject. Due to the stress the serum could cause on the cognitive function of a human, this could prove a challenge. However, I have hope we can make this work. Day 34 of experimentation. We have vetted out and identified the most suitable test subject for the Megalodon Project. To create a human with the godlike attribute of omniscience, we must first make sure the subject believes it is possible to gain this attribute. For a stable, rational mind, the experiment could completely override their sense of self and reality. Our psychological research has suggested that a sane mind would simply shut down and cease to process reality in the wake of the experiment. As such, we have selected a high-functioning schizotypal subject. He already believes he is the Messiah. Therefore, when we administer the experiment, it will ideally not have much impact on his belief systems. As such, he was less likely to have a mental breakdown. Ideally, we would use a mentally well subject, as there will be fewer external variables involved. However, due to the nature of our research, we do not have much of a choice. For this project to be a success, you need a bit of crazy. That being said, once we have proved this experiment possible, we must then figure out how to properly apply our research to our investors. Assuming they are all of sane mind, this could prove a challenge. One step at a time though. First we must succeed in the initial testing. Day 48 of experimentation. We have now successfully adapted our formula to the human subject. Initially we were worried that the chemical composition would prove harmful to the human immune system. For the sake of posterity, I will describe how the formula functions. Through a combination of chemistry, biology, and quantum mechanics, we have discovered that through the human pineal gland we are able to access innate information about the universe previously thought impossible. In the 21st century this was considered a purely spiritual practice. However, in the modern era, the 23rd century, we now understand that we can apply our scientific method to it. The interconnectedness of all things have become scientifically provable through the research we have done at SCP Labs. Now we are simply activating this process through a chemical compound. The pineal gland is the key to unlocking this knowledge that has laid dormant for centuries. We are an aspect of everything. It's time we acted as such.
John, as the head researcher of the Megalodon Project, what do you have to say to the human rights protesters? People are saying the use of a vulnerable, mentally ill test subject is highly unethical.
Thank you for the question. I believe this is an important subject to discuss with the public. The experiments we are performing on our subjects are not harmful in the slightest. In fact, it's the opposite. If anything, we're improving their quality of life. Plus, should the experiment go awry, the process is completely safe and reversible. We have no concerns regarding the ethical implications of such experiments. We are giving a mentally ill man hope. Once we have finished the experiments, he will not only be better than he was before, but he will be better than all of us. He will be omniscient.
The protesters are arguing that someone with that mental capacity does not have the ability to consent to the experiments. What do you have to say regarding this?
I see no issue here. Science has always done what's necessary for the advancement of humankind. We at SCP Labs consider this a necessary evil, one that will yield a huge payoff for our civilization. When you consider the bigger picture, this issue is incredibly minor.
But is this really necessary? Will it really advance humanity or just benefit a small number of investors?
Alright, that's enough questions. Thank you all for your time. This press interview is over. This will be the final log notes for the Megalodon Project. We have stretched the limits of human capability. We have explored new horizons. We have dared to go where no man has dared since the inception of humankind. But was it worth it? The experimentation was a resounding success. The serum worked exactly as it was supposed to. We observed cognitive ability that was so profoundly extreme, even though our most cutting-edge technology can no longer observe the theta waves. We can only assume what the subject was feeling in this moment. Was it elation, depression, complete apathy? I can't even begin to fathom it. All I know is that these experimentations not only succeeded in its objective, but it also made me a monster. Maybe the protesters were right. Maybe this was science gone too far. None of that matters now. All that's left is to live with what I've done. I was delusional. I believed I was helping humanity. When everyone was telling me these experiments were only for the benefit of the heartless 1%, I ignored them. But now seeing how the investors have responded to the aftermath of this chaos, I can only believe I was a pawn in their sick delusions. I'm getting off track. The experiment was a success by every metric we had set regarding concrete measurements. We gave the man omniscience. However, every question we asked him garnered no response. When we left him alone in his room, he had managed to fashion a noose out of the bedsheets we provided and hung himself. God knows what the fuck he saw that led to an omniscient man to this conclusion. And honestly, that's almost as terrifying as the fact that these experiments had turned me into a murderer. I had spent too much time. I was too close to the experiment. I couldn't see the forest for the trees, and now an innocent man's blood is on my hands. The investors were not all fazed by this conclusion. They simply seemed happy that the experiment was a success by their standards. They asked me to further develop the serum, but I refused. I cannot fathom their disregard for life. I believe it is time for me to hang up my lab coat. This will be my last log note. If anyone but me listens to this, I hope you learn something from me. Do not lose your humanity in the pursuit of science.